Sorry. All right, you want to slide the hell over. Oh shit! Might need to tighten this up. You got a quarter? Change coins.
I got a call.
Boom.
I need it back.
Fuck that. Mine now. Oh shit! I made it loose.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. There we go.
So let me slide in real quick.
Move it back, move it back, move it back.
That's right.
Starbucks, the drink for champions. Man, fuck all that. All right, today we're actually going to talk about depression. Not just because his face depresses you, but no, we're gonna end with a discussion on depression. We're going to also announce that we're going to have a stream today with Anthony Joshua. Thank you for the horn, appreciate that. And provetkin for the heavyweight title, as well as UFC Fight Night. It's actually, I think it starts in less than 3 hours now because it's going to be 3 o'clock my time, so whatever the hell time that is for you. And, you know, right now we're getting ready to have a discussion on depression, as this young man is a expert, so to speak, on the subject. But no, we're going to have a discussion about what it is. And you know what? You go ahead. It's on you.
Okay. So now for many years we've been dealing with, I think in society, especially here in America, we've been dealing with a lot of clinical depression, which is defined as a feeling of sadness, and also it is described for many as the feeling that you have no worth, or there is no reason for you to continue on living. I believe that depression is more of a symptom uh, for another for another apologize.
Disorder?
Well, it is just a symptom for a bigger problem that we have, you know. And I refer that to postmodernism and to existentialism.
Okay, what the hell is
It,
existentialism?
no, existentialism.
Okay, that's pretty clear too. All right. You explaining it, man?
Well, you have to ask some,
Yeah, I have
to
no
start
idea.
a conversation.
Yeah, I still don't have any idea what that is because okay, well, I guess I can give you kind of a feedback of a story that I have as far as my own experience. Um, I'm at a point now where, for most of my life, I've had people around me, my kids, relationships, or what have you, and for the last couple of years, I've actually been, well, actually, last year and a half, I've been 100% by myself on my own, and I find that being like sitting in my apartment or whatever by myself on a daily basis, it's kind of like I lose focus on the things that I do. And I'm not sure, I'm not sad, but I do need people around me for the most part. Would you, would that be categorized as something as a form of depression or a gateway into depression?
Well, it's an initial stage on it. You know, it is like you say, a gateway to depression, because once you lose order in a sense of why to do things, is where it starts. When you lose that purpose, that order in your life to do things, uh, where you don't have to now wake up in the morning and have a reason to go somewhere or do something, and so at that point it just starts seems like motionless, and it starts to see to feel like there is no reason, no purpose to continue on doing this stuff. So it loses meaningfulness to you, as far as I can tell, And I mean, going back to personal stories, I have deal with depression myself. It's still an ongoing battle. It's not a battle that goes away.
Okay.
It's kind of thing that you have to deal with daily, and it's a mental illness, but it's more of the emotional part of it.
Now okay. Why would it be classified a mental illness? Because like you're out. It comes from. I guess because I'm saying because it comes from an outward expression or an outward experience. So how is that mental?
Well, like
But
to define.
and hold on,
Okay.
let me before you answer that. And the reason I say that is because it's not just like you said. You don't really stop being depressed. You change your focus, so it's not necessarily a switch. So I'm not. If it never goes away, how can it be a mental issue? Is what I'm asking.
Well, as far as the medical field is concerned, is that it limits your functionality as far as the daily basis. It hinders you from performing at your best, and it also has to do with mental receptors. The neurons in your brain.
Okay.
Sometimes you lack of med dopamine, I
Okay.
believe, and so there is some other things that causes in your brain hormonal imbalance. So sometimes it's not just how you feel. Sometimes there is underlying physical cause of it.
Okay. So like you have like the the excess estrogen, or as you say, the lack of dopamine, or maybe the way you're eating for the most part, or even let's say you lose your job or something, so that changes your purpose. So all those, as you say, could be triggers. So what can we do to kind of lessen that? Because just to give you an idea why it's still kind of intriguing to me is because you look at a place like Seattle, Washington. It's an absolutely beautiful place. However, it has the highest suicide rate, and I'm pretty sure suicide is linked to depression. And then it also has one of the highest amount of rain that's there, and rain is also used as a calming sense. So if you're in a beautiful place and you're supposedly calm, what takes you into a depression?
Well, one of the factors, and that comes into play when you talk about, or you're losing your job, you're losing the purpose on your life per se, you know the structure of it, and it it comes into the factor of your environment. What's happening around you. It's not only because Seattle, yeah, they're propense to it. They have a proclivity to become depressed, but is what I'm saying is it has to do with your environment, what's going on around you. So partially, it is a response of our body to our stimulus outside of it, and it is a kind of tricky thing because not everybody responds the same way. Like you mentioned, rain sometimes make you feel sad, make you feel a little depressed, but usually what happens is after the rain goes away, you feel normal again. Like say you have a full week of rain, uh, obviously not here.
Yeah. We won't have a full week of anything other than sun.
uh, but just in a case, right, where you have constantly rain, you feel sad, like lack of energy per se.
Okay.
And what happens usually, your body adapts to it. So it's, after it goes away, the rain goes away, and so you coming back to normal. That's what usually happens. With depression, it's a continuous stimulus that goes on your life. And like I say, I believe it's part of the lack of a structure, the lack of purpose in your life. And I'm not meaning just a job or going to school or doing this or doing what you like a
Yeah.
hobby or something like that. But in the more deep way, it's deeply embedded into you in a way that, well, life is full of suffering. Is You have a lot of problems every day.
Right.
You face through, uh, you know, losing of a loved one. You lose friends. You can lose your job. You can go through divorce. And there's many other examples that happen. The that you lose something that held you together,
Okay.
right? And so,
Now I'm gonna jump in again, but I, I had a book that was given to me probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was called The Purpose Driven Life. It was actually a book that since it was given to me, I actually passed it on. It was one of the few books I actually went and, after it was given, I went and purchased again, but I also regifted it because I don't think I don't think the basis of the book was what you're saying as far as your day-to-day basis or day-to-day purpose. Like, I got to get up to go pay bills, or I got to get up to make sure my child gets to school on time and eat and all that good stuff. But it talks about your actual life purpose. So it starts off from conception to present for the most part. Now, I think somewhere along that journey, a lot of us get lost, not necessarily because of the loss of a loved one, but it's like you said, sometimes an underlying issue, and then it's compounded by the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the change of situation, or um, the frequency of a situation, and it can be one of those things where you have someone that's, let's say, they are they're in the midst of a life change, and which would be like a move from one state to another state, or even, let's say, one of my biggest moves initially when I was younger was from Augusta to Atlanta. And that's 150 miles, but the cities themselves were completely different in the aspects of Augusta was military town, or is a military town, and for the most part, it's still a little slow. And meaning they're like the job market is not booming, the surroundings, the outside activities, all those are not booming things. But then when you go to Atlanta, you got nightlife, you got you know
it's a more active
yeah,
lifestyle.
more active lifestyle, more places to go to, more things to do. And I think what happens is because of subtle changes, we resist them. So when you're taking a chance, I think it becomes a fear of being wrong, or being rejected, or not being accepted on some level. And I'm wondering, is that part of something that can cause some type of chemical imbalance, or something that can cause other aspects? Just like we know in certain issues with health, they do come from mental aspects from outside change. And it sounds like depression is something that comes from outside stimulus. So is that pretty much the term that you're looking at, or that's what you're actually saying, versus, okay, I just lost my job, I just lost my loved one, or, you know, I just had a relative pass or whatever. Is that is that pretty much along the same lines, or is it just the fact of a mental change, physical aspects of viewing things?
Well, depression is a very complex issue. Scientifically, they haven't really pinpoint where the depression comes from. They just know how to help you in your imbalance in your chemicals when they're imbalanced. Say, well, we know you're sad, so we're gonna try to give you something to help you feel better. You know, and that's in the medical field, in the scientific field. That is what they're treating the symptoms, not the actual underlying cause. You know, there is, like I say, multiple factors to depression. Not only the psychological factor or the actual body stimulus, and neither is just the life experience. So it's all a compound of everything coming into your life. You know, just like any other problem, it's a very complex problem. So I think one of the reasons why it's so complex is because people tend to lack of honesty, and I mean like being honest with yourself. I've actually I
Yeah,
spoke
yeah.
to
Give me an example of that.
well, I spoke to a guy a couple of weeks ago actually. What drives me to do this live, and he was talking about, well, how do I go about life? I don't know what to do in life. Is something that scares me. Is I don't know what to do with my life right now. I don't know if I need to go in this direction or in the other direction professionally. And it was the lack of that self purpose. But the one thing I told him, and I think is true, is that you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You know, and for that is a very hard thing for you to do. It's very harsh because you have to be accountable for yourself and say, well, I failed. Why did I fail? You know,
Hmm.
why do I feel the way I feel? And sometimes it takes you, a great amount of strength to admit what your problem is, and have that, because that's one part that helps you solve the depression. You know, now I think that the other step on that is, for myself, I believe that is, just being constantly assessing your life and saying, hey, this is not what I wanted, you know, or I want to change the direction where my life is going. I want to do something else. But for that, you need to be constantly alert. I was talking to another friend actually last night, and I was telling him, well, you know, your spouse is not going to be the same one that you met last year. We change daily.
Right.
So, and the problem is that we don't really take the time to meditate and say what has changed, you know, because I'm not going to be the same person that was, the last week.
Well, you shouldn't be the same person that you was last week.
Well,
And
I mean, in the more like details, in the way of thinking, perspective, and the way you view life,
right,
you know, and so it is very hard for you to keep that reassessment every day, and people don't notice that. I mean, even within your family, your kids, your wife, or whatever, the people you spend the most time with. Sometimes you lack of that awareness that things are changing as you're moving on, and you don't notice how people change around you.
right.
So that's what I'm saying. You need to keep reassessing your life goals and why you're doing what you're doing. If you don't have a reason to drive your goals, then anything that any problem, any trouble that is on the way is going to destroy that goal because there is no underlying, you know, reason motivating you to continue.
Okay. So is that like why a lot of times you hear women say, "Oh, well, he doesn't support me," or even men say that now, and or they're looking for reaffirmation and or looking
For
for
validation.
approval. Yeah, validation. That's great. That's a great one. Is that was that something that you would consider part of the aspects of going out? Because again, we're still talking about things such as change,
Right.
and because change one is inevitable. And for me, each change that I made, it was scary as hell, but it was for a purpose. And there were times where, like, I'm like, oh shit, like, really, you know. But it didn't deter where I was at. It just kind of made me rethink on how to approach it. Now, what would some of the solutions you would suggest for those that are experiencing some of the things that you've experienced, I've experienced, and mostly people in Seattle, are experiencing?
Well, actually, I would say everybody, every person in this world is going to suffer at some point, some form of depression, and that's something we deal with as part of life. I believe that accepting the fact that you're going to die, you know, is one of the steps because, and I'm not saying that as I'm being catastrophic.
Right.
You know, I'm saying that as well. You have to accept the fact that it's part of the circle of life. You know, you come into the world, you live, you try to make something out of it, and pursue a purpose in your life. You know, to make it worthwhile all the suffering that you're living,
Right.
right? But we often skip that part where say, well, we're going to die. So that itself is conflicting with what you're doing because you're like, I don't want to die. I mean, who really wants to die? And say, yeah, I want to die. I want to die. You know, nobody really just wakes up and say that. It takes some time and some process for somebody to get to that point. And like I say, you have two options. Say that you say, well, we're going to die, so why to do anything anyway? You know, life sucks. Why to do anything? Why to care about what is happening around me? It's better off if I just send it right now. That's the option one, and that's what happens with persons with depression and suicide tendencies. Um, and the other one is, well, I'm going to die, so might as well make it work. You know, find something that inspires you to be a better person, not only for yourself but for others around you. You know, having a different outlook that, well, I know that life is painful. I know that I have to go through all of this, and it's constantly changing and it's challenging, to the least. But I'm going to make it better for others, so at least I'm taking some of that suffering out and make it work for others around me. If I at least I understand pain, why will I want somebody else or my loved ones to go through that same process? You know, so that is one way to uh, find a solution out of the rabbit hole. Because you just find that you just go deeper and deeper and deeper and well into things of life and different aspects of it, and then you just start because for me when I start having problems with depression, it was like that numbness, that feeling that I'm just waking up, going to work, going to sleep, and then, well, repeat again. Like a cycle with no reason to do it.
Groundhog Day.
Right, right. It's pretty much what it is, and so it drives you deeper into that hole where now you're losing a sense of why you're doing things and why to continue. So accepting that you're dead and the death of loved ones uh, help you move on in life. And it's not that you lost somebody. Yeah, they're not here with you no more, but at least treasure those moments and honor those lives in the past if that's what you're dealing with, and that's the reason why you're dealing with depression. You know, what a better way to say, well, they passed away, so I'm gonna make something out of it and make sure that their life is not forgotten in a way.
Right.
You know.
And I'm actually gonna kind of interject little a little story, so to speak. Well, last year I had a friend of mine. We actually played ball together, and it was the craziest thing I'd ever experienced in my life. He and I were probably about a month apart in age. He was a very active guy, and we went and played ball one Sunday, and we played early in the morning. And he goes, "Hey, why don't you?" He asked me. He said, "What are you doing there?" Man, ain't nobody at the house. I ain't doing shit. So he was like, "Yeah, come on with me." So we went. He played baseball or whatever. So sat out there, watched him. Then we left, took showers or whatever. He came through and he said, "Hey, I'm having a get together at my house. Why don't you come watch it?" And it was the season opener. It was Cowboys versus the Giants. And went in there. We watched it, had a great time. And he dropped me off back at the house. He said, "Hey man, I'll come get you Wednesday. Cause we having something else because something else was coming on." I was like, "Well, cool. I ain't got shit going on because it's just me." And about 2 o'clock that morning, because it was like maybe 10 or 11. And what happened was I got a call that he had passed away. So literally the last day of his life I spent with him. And again, he was a healthy guy. He worked out more than I did. He was more active than I was. And it really bothered me because we were the same age. And right after that, I kind of restructured because for like 3 days, I didn't want to do shit. Like nothing. But right after that happened, it was just like, maybe that Friday or Saturday, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to be happy. And while I haven't done more as far as like, oh, let me go travel to here, let me go travel there. It's just I get up every day. My purpose is different every day. And but the main purpose is for me to smile. Find a way to smile. And I think for instance I fell into a bit of depression according to what you were saying. And I never thought of it as depression because it was just like I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to take my life, but I just didn't want to do anything. And when you're thinking of it on that level, it's no, I didn't need medication, but I did need to refocus and repurpose what I was doing. And in repurposing, I actually found meaning. Because even like today, this is something that I haven't done. I haven't done a 30-minute live for nothing. Like, I just don't do that. That's not what I do. But it's something that today really seems necessary because you never know exactly what it is that you're running into or what you're facing until somebody says it out loud, because it's always a question, but a lot of times we get to a point where we're afraid to ask the question.
And I mean, I don't think it's just that you're afraid. It's that you don't know what to ask or what to feel because it's confusing feeling. Like you say, well, I didn't feel like I wanted to take my life. I wanted to end it. So up to this day, you didn't see it as a like form of depression or a different level of depression per se. Uh, but it was there. And so you didn't really identify what was happening at that point, right? So it changes. I mean, at that point, you mentioned that the way your life changed is now you have to have a purpose, a different purpose, and to make sure you can smile every day. So that's a healthy way to look at it, But that event changed the way you look at things, the way you process things per se, you know. Because like you say, well, you have similar background, but he was more healthy. Why it happened? Life is a tragedy. That's what happens. I mean, it's fragile and it can end at any point. I can be talking to you right now and you just drop dead like that the next second. But it's what you do with it and how you go about it. Because like I say, you can be catastrophic and say, well, you know, I don't want to deal with it, and just avoid the problem and just let it on the back of your mind. And eventually, what happens, it builds on and on and on until you crack. You know, so sometimes, and for many, it's quite difficult to do this. Sometimes you need to release that what you're feeling. Being honest again with yourself and being able to say, I'm not feeling all right. This is not all right. That's what changes, and I think it's necessary for you and for anyone else dealing with it that you need to express those feelings. However, I want to also go back to the perspective of a person with depression, you know, because their point of view, like I say, is catastrophic, is what, well, there's no point on me leaving, you know. So you can, as a person, you can probably sympathize with what they're feeling. And you can probably feel bad for them and maybe even feel their pain in a way, you know. But there's nothing you can really do. It's a personal choice the person has to make and a decision the person has to make to get better.
Okay, now you just said personal choice. Now, if it's a mental illness, doesn't that kind of eclipse the personal choice aspect of it? Because, not like every sickness doesn't need medication. I technically had a sickness I didn't need medication for. Literally, I took a what you would consider a personal choice and like, you know what, fuck this. This is what I'm doing. But everybody's not built that way. Everybody's not trained to think that way. Everybody's not in line to go in that route. There are some people that have to talk about it to actually find the actual root, but it sometimes causes other damages. And so saying, I guess, personal choice, that kind of deflects their mental illness aspect of it.
Well, it's like you mentioned. Well, you got an illness, you got sick on some aspect, but you choose not to go to do anything about it, right? And it's just like any other thing that you can have wrong in your body. Say, you broke your hand. If, I mean, I can't force
So
you.
you're just gonna bring it up. That's what you do. You're just gonna bring it up right here.
Well, you can't uh, you know force anyone to go to the doctor because they have a broken bone or something. It is their choice. If they don't want to deal with that pain, they have to choose to go to the doctor and get better. You know, and I'm not saying that it's not a mental illness, but just like anything else in life, you have a choice on what to do. Because I can say and keep on saying things, you'll get better. You know, it's going to be okay. I care about you. And it does help, but think about how that person is just saying that that's complete rubbish. I don't care. You know, I stop caring. I'm feeling numb, so it doesn't matter what you say. And that's that mentality that they have at that point that makes it kind of impossible to penetrate because they go into this world, this bubble, on their own minds, where it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter what I say as a third person for them, but they have to, like I say, choose to be honest with themselves. Choose to, I want to get better. I don't want to feel sad. You know, I know something is wrong with me,
Oh,
but
okay, but see here's the second part of that. Okay, going personal choice and then not wanting to be sad and not knowing. Those are all separate issues in the same
right,
category for the most part. So if you don't know, do you really have a choice? And I think that's what happens is you have things that hit you and you're saying, okay, I want to be happy, I want to be happy, but you don't know what makes you happy. And then you have no purpose. And then you don't see your purpose.
right.
And I think that's what I'm looking for. What will some solutions be? Because saying to me saying personal choice and then you have those two aspects in there, it kind of eliminates personal choice. It also eliminates mental
It
illness.
cancels each other out.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why it's kind of confusing. So is that why you're saying it's hard to define it?
It is. I mean, because it has many aspects to it. It's not just, like I say, it's not just the medical aspect. It's the personal. The individual that you have to take into account is where they at, what are they doing, at what point in their life are they, you know, and so, and they there is people that think that it might be, you might inherit that in your genes, you might carry that in your genes in some form. I don't know if that's true, you know but there is many complex
You
to
need to change your pockets then.
it.
Can't be toting that round in your pockets.
Well, that's why I make the disclaimer. I'm not sure of that, but there is
Has that been
other
something that's
aspects.
proven medically or scientifically?
I wouldn't say scientifically proven at 100% because they're looking at what is causing depression at the genetic level.
Okay.
And so also they're looking at the biological aspect and try to decode what is going on really as far as your biology, as far as the body at the human body level. Uh,
Now, I can probably say from some aspect that there is a chemical level because there are some places where your body, like you say, Seattle, your body adapts to the area. Alaska, your body adapts to the area. So there will be certain aspects of that that don't produce certain amounts of dopamine, don't produce certain amounts of outside stimulus, that don't produce a lot of the other things that you would normally say see in a larger city like New York or LA. And when you have those factors being taken out, I think it would be a little bit more difficult to say, okay, definitively this is the level that you have
right.
to be at, or that. But for the most part, I think what it is, we need to have somebody that we can talk, or as we
Somebody
say,
that you can trust.
yeah, or not even trust. Go somewhere that you can talk. So it might be go out to the lake and just vent, because I do know holding that in, it does cause issues. And I do know that if you're not able to release any of that, it does create other issues which can be compounded, rather quickly.
Right.
Um, so, in closing, this is actually interesting, man. I appreciate that. But in closing, we're looking at an issue where it's difficult to define, and people need to find some form of release. If it's no more than walking the track, going to the lake, working out, or finding something that makes you smile every day. I think those are things that help you find a purpose, help you find what it is that you are actually looking for. And we are now in an age where you can actually do the things that literally make you happy. And I think those are things that we should all seek out. And as long as we're doing that, I think we'll be okay and kind of start reversing this trend.
Yeah, and well, I think the other part that happens to be in society, you know, is the culture norm that I guess in a fact sometimes that this society, you know, encapsulates you into a way of thinking, you know, or a way to be more egoistic. Because if you pay attention to life, well, there's a bunch of power struggle everywhere. You fight to get a better job, a better wage, you know, back and forward. So it is a struggle that goes around life. Uh, that's needless to say. But in the cultural level for depression, I think that some people have that shame of coming out and say, well, it's not okay that I come out and say that. So it's restricting yourself from actually getting that release that you're talking about. Uh, so for me, I would say if you're dealing with depression or you know that somebody who's dealing with depression, find a way to build a structure and order in your life. Um, you know, it doesn't come easy. You have to know, well, that you want to get better.
Right.
You know, you have to work towards it. You have to be willing to put that work into getting better. And now, I will say that the key for it is find a goal, not just a goal of I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to get a job or this or that, but something meaningful, you know, a goal that is not really easy for you to get. Like, well, I want to get my master's, you know. Why? Because that's gonna bring me a purpose in life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a master's. You can
And
be
it can
like,
be a moving goal, so that way when you hit it, now you have another step that you can go
right,
to.
right. And that's what I'm saying earlier on. You need to be able to reassess your life constantly, reassess your goals, and keep them moving forward. So you can chase after that, and you can be like, well, it's worth it. I'm, you know, this is making me better.
Okay. Well, anything that you have in closing other than that?
I think that is pretty much it for me.
All right. Well, I appreciate you today. And looks like in about 2 hours we're going to have the live stream of Anthony Joshua Provetkin as well as UFC Fight Night in Brazil. So, see you guys later. You can't even see that. Look, this ain't.